I think the solution is men showing up more on domestic duties, but they won't because of freaking tradcons and neocons who are telling them that it's gay and beta.
It is gay and beta most of the time.
Welcome back to TheChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. I got a video today from Chen. 3 feminists just get owned by Michael Knowles. This is actually Chen's reaction to it. I like how she analyzes this. Please subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. Let's get that chow. It's chow time.
Hello, gentle viewer. We have another day, another set of viral clips from the Whatever podcast.
There are strong correlation, if not just straight up causation, of being able to have a kid that's healthier, more educated, has better life prospects, just overall a better life if you can afford a better life for them. So I think there is something to be said about like, hey, you don't have to be the top 1% owner.
You don't need that extra 25% in your income.
Yeah, but I think there is also something to be said about like, hey,
I think it's so dumb that it's 3 feminist women that do OnlyFans that are in their early 20s debating against Michael Knowles, which is quite seasoned in the debate scene and is very well educated. It is almost a no-brainer who's going about to get the floor wiped on. I can't even say the word. Who's going to get the floor wiped up? Fuck. It's pretty obvious who's going to get their... What's the saying? It's pretty obvious who's going to mop the floor with who.
A lot of these women, the reason why they still want to work or they're still interested, because they want to provide the best possible life they can for their family. So I think there is a balance to be struck there. I don't think it's all just like, oh, it's kind of frivolous money.
Ooh, so I think I again haven't seen the podcast in its entirety, but I'm guessing this clip centers around the idea of mom and dad both working outside of the home once there are children around, which I don't think Michael will be in support of. What this woman, I mean, obviously it's hard in this day and age. A lot of people do want families. They want a lot of kids. A lot of women would love to stay home, but we live in the real world, and you gotta make money to feed kids, clothe kids. It's not easy. And I've had people say, well, Lauren, why would you shame working mothers? Not everyone is lucky enough like you to work from home part-time while having a kid. And it's like, for the record, I don't believe in shaming working mothers, because we live in society and there are people out there who would love to stay home, but unfortunately simply cannot because of finances.
It's only 15%, maybe 10% of women get the privilege to be able to be fully stay-at-home wives, fully stay-at-home mothers. It is almost a necessity for most households that the man works and the woman works. Very few households make over $100,000 or $150,000 with only one income. That's the dumbest shit that like these women are like thinking that there's so many men out there that are able to provide this lifestyle to be able to just do whatever you want and not have to worry about, finances and things like that to contribute. It's nearly impossible. Even men understand this. And I understand like a lot of the red pill, a lot of the people in our space don't really acknowledge this part too often. But yes, most of you guys are going to be 2-income households. Very few of you guys are going to be able to earn enough money to support one full family. And if you do, you found a really good woman that is very minimalist. Like if you can live off of 70,000 and raise a whole family with 70, 60,000, but your partner and you have to be very frugal in a sense of your finances.
I think the issue that's worth focusing on for conservatives is the fact that family should always come first.
Agreed.
So I guess that's my challenge to anyone out there, working mothers and fathers. Are you working the amount that you're working to provide for your family because it's a necessity, or are you doing it out of self-interest for your own ego, for your own career? You could be spending more time with your family and your children, but you're not because you're seeking glory outside of the home.
That would be targeted more to us men, I think. A lot of us men, yes, we neglect the home. We neglect a lot of the more family-oriented things to pursue the highest career possible, to pursue the highest income possible. It's a bit of glory for us, but it's also the finances to be able to provide for our family. Is it really that big? It's a big balance. Some people really just want a lot of money, and they think that money is going to solve all the problems. But we've seen it. You can buy a Lamborghini for your kid, but if you don't have a father, that Lamborghini ain't going to do shit.
Political economy right now that basically forces women to work even when they don't want to. So it's no longer a choice. It's more an obligation for most people. And I agree that's bad, and we should take political action to change that. I'm all for that. I think that would be great. However,
Here, Michael.
You can raise kids on not a lot of money.
Correct.
I didn't come from a ton of money, and I know a lot of my friends didn't come from a ton of money. And, yes, you need to be able to eat. You need a roof over your head. You need some clothes. But you can do that for a lot less than we have now. The problem is the two income trap is that once you start living that dink lifestyle, dual income, no kids, or the dinky lifestyle where it's like no kids yet.
The whole dink and dinky term is just so funny to me. Like millennials or Gen Z or whoever made up these terms just like didn't want kids so bad, that loved their money so much, and they're so greedy. They're like, yeah, I'm proud to be married and have a partner and maybe both of us make over 200 grand and have no kids so we can spend all of our glorious money on ourselves and not have to worry about anything else. It just sounds super greedy to me and super selfish. But it's just how I view things.
You get accustomed to a standard of living that you don't want to give up, but it's worth it. Yeah, make sure you can feed your kids, but make sure you have kids to feed.
I've often heard it said when I bring up the very low birth rates we have in the West that, things are just too expensive for people to be having kids. People would love to be having kids. They just simply cannot afford it, which is why birth rate is so low. If you want people to have more kids, people just need more money. That's patently false. Again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't make things more affordable or easier for families, but the idea that there are people out there, many, many people who would love to have kids but literally cannot afford it, that is not what the statistics bear out, okay? In the United States, you're actually less likely to have children or a lot of children the higher income you are. You're more likely to have kids if you are lower income. You're more likely to have kids worldwide if you come from a poorer country than a richer country. And again, none of this is to say that we shouldn't be trying to make it affordable for families. We should, but there is a clear difference in cultural values and in priorities between, poorer people who are used to maybe not as many luxuries, but who still want kids versus, your dink couples who really prize going on these multiple vacations a year, and they know that if they have kids, they won't be able to afford that. On this point, though, I have seen, I think it's Hungary has implemented a policy where if you are a woman and you have, I think, at least 4 kids, you don't pay any income tax ever.
That one's a little weird to me. Why is it only the women that get the income tax break? Why not the men too that have these kids? Like, if you have 4 kids, what's the likelihood of you actually producing income? Very unlikely, because you have 4 kids. So I don't know, that thing sounds a little off. But if they made it for men, you know how many Ray Rays and Pookies are out there, especially the big movie stars here in the United States that aren't going to be paying taxes? Like freaking, what's his name? Like Future and the guy from Wipeout or whatever. They have like what, 6, 7 kids, 12 kids each. They would never have to pay taxes, and they make millions. I would love to just have 4 kids and never pay taxes again.
I think that should extend to like entire family units. I'm not exactly sure how that law works, but that is exactly the type of policy that I think we should be implementing in Western countries. And it has worked in Hungary, getting those birth rates up. Let's do more of that. I don't see a good.
I also remember Australia was paying couples quite a bit of money, or giving them a house if they were willing to have a kid or 2 kids. Things like that are actually pretty good too. I don't know about giving out a free house, but taxes is actually pretty damn nice.
Good conservative reason to oppose it. We could make this happen. Let's make it happen. I believe in us.
Also, to go back to happiness and feminism and girl bosses and females in the workspace, another reason that women could have lower reported happiness is because they're still shoring up on most of the household duties, despite now also taking up, you know what I mean? They're doing still a lion's share of domestic work.
They don't get married anyway, so they don't even have households.
Yep.
That's not true. They're still cohabitating. They're still...
even within marriage. I agree.
Even
cohabitation makes women unhappy too. Yeah.
I mean, even within marriage now.
Fascinating stuff. We have more to get to.
But first, I do want to say a big thank you to today's sponsor, The Wellness Company, a brand that I think is doing such good work. Did you know that close to prepared than not. So a huge thank you to the wellness company for sponsoring this video.
You don't think there's a ton of marriages in which women are also working and then also shoring up a lion's share of the household duties.
Yeah.
And that's why they're unhappy, because now they're being burdened in two directions.
Yeah, sure. But so what's the solution to that?
I think
the solution
is men shoring up more on domestic duties, but they won't because of freaking trad cons and neocons who are telling them that
No,
It's always men's fault. It's our fault. It's our fault that you have to go work and take care of the kids and still take care of the household. It's men's fault. We made it like that, huh?
it's gay and beta if they do these certain tasks.
It is
Somewhat
gay and
is.
beta most of the time.
So I would have liked to see more of Michael Knowles' answer there. But okay, regarding the household tasks not being equally divided, I think, it is true that in the modern era, a lot more of the financial burden does fall on women, but women still.
I'm going to disagree with Lauren. Not more of the financial burdens on women. Women seem to be able to take more financial burdens nowadays, but they really aren't. Not on a mass compared to men. So I think that statement's a little bit off.
Still are doing the majority of household tasks, and that has led to women being unhappy. Does that mean that we need even more feminism so that men do more household chores? I don't think so. I think we need to change the way that we look at marriages and relationships. Some people think that marriages are 50-50. That's not true. A lot of people who are in successful marriages will say that it's actually about 100-100. So both partners giving 100%. Ladies, you can't really have it all. The lie that feminism has sold women that, we could be out here earning a ton of money and live the girl boss dream, and we could just leave domestic duties behind because that's old fashioned. It's like, regardless of whether you're married, ladies, you're going to have to be cooking and cleaning. Like, do you assume that if you're single, you're not going to have to cook and clean for yourself? Because that's not reality.
That's the other part that I always think is just so funny that women always want to complain about it. So you're with someone that helps take care of half the bills, and maybe even more than half the bills. Yes, you work, but you have to take care of the household. Guess what? You would have to take care of 100% of all the goddamn bills and still take care of your own household by yourself. How is that better than someone here helping ease a lot of that financial burden? Maybe he might not help so much with the household chores, but he eases the financial burden. How is that not a plus in women's eyes? Is this the women, the girl math not math out the way my math works out? Because it's a plus. You're gaining something. You're not technically losing anything. You would have done these household chores. You would have done laundry anyways. Am I stupid?
Still gonna need to do that. At least in the past, when marriage was more about partnership, it meant that you could relinquish some of those other duties, and you would, overall be in a better position because you had a partner helping you through life. It seems like for a lot of people, that's not what marriage or relationships mean anymore. It's like you're just roommates who do everything 50-50, and you keep tabs on what the other has done, because then that dictates how much you do, and no extra effort, because heaven forbid that you lose out. Just what a toxic, frankly,
I think women cause this lifestyle of how people are now, because men used to be very, very generous, used to be very, very loving. Now men are very, very callous and very, very calculating.
tiring mentality that must be.
The nursing programs and teaching programs have put out, research of why men won't join these industries despite them reaching out. And one of the biggest reasons is because they feel like it's overly feminine. Do you think that's due to liberal feminism or due to conservatism, that fear?
No, I think it's just natural.
Yeah.
I think it's just a natural thing about men. They are not inclined toward the those more nurturing professions.
But the alternative is they're sitting at home unemployed right now. They're reaching out to unemployed men. It's not.
Just because we're unemployed doesn't mean we want to do shit that we don't want to do. Just like women don't want to do shit that they don't want to do, even if they're unemployed. I can't force a woman to have kids. I can't force a woman to go work. How can you force a man to go work in an industry or in a career that he doesn't want to do? Do you think that's going to be a wonderful nurse to work with or a wonderful nurse to take care of elderly? The man doesn't want to be there. Forcing people to do jobs they don't want to do is not how you get about things. And it's not how you get quality workers and quality, experiences for the community. It doesn't make sense that you're forcing people. Now it's almost slavery. You're forcing people to do jobs they don't want to do, or forcing them to do things.
Not men in STEM. They're reaching out to men who are disaffected right now, and they won't do it still because it's seen as gay.
Yeah, I think the men should work, but they should maybe do things that they're more inclined.
I do agree. Most of the men that are in nursing are mostly Filipino men, and they are the more feminine of type men's.
To do. I don't think we need to conscript men to go become nurses wearing frilly little dresses.
But they're not more inclined to do
feminism.
because, you know what I mean? Manual labor jobs are basically getting eradicated. And a lot of these men, not to be mean.
You see, she doesn't even use the same argument for the other way, for the manual labor jobs. There's still plenty of men doing those jobs. Why aren't we conscripting women to go work those manual labor jobs to fill in those gaps? But we would rather conscript men to do jobs that they don't want to do so that we can fill in those gaps. Does that even fucking make sense? This is exactly what feminists want. They want full control over men and want men to do whatever the fuck they want men to do. Like, I need you to do this. Go do that. But women aren't held to the same standard.
Aren't necessarily smart enough to go into STEM, so I think other industries might be better for them, but they won't do it. They'd rather sit at home to preserve their masculinity, and I think conservatism is to blame for that.
I think mass migration is actually to blame for the problem of the working classes not having as much employment as they used to, which is something that conservatives generally haven't pushed. I think there are all sorts of political reasons that happens, but I don't think that any amount of feminist indoctrination and brainwashing is going to convince a man that he really wants to do an extremely feminine role.
So that's interesting. And I guess the question this woman is asking is, how can we make men more likely to enter these roles that are traditionally seen as feminine? Because, unemployment rates are high, and some of these different roles like nursing or teaching, I guess, have job openings. It's just that unemployed men don't really take them. I agree with Michael Knowles. I don't think we should be conscripting men who don't want to be in a certain industry to be in that industry. Historically speaking, if someone does not want to perform a job or duty, making them or trying to manipulate them so that they are compliant, I don't think it's a recipe for success, especially if we're talking about something like nursing or teaching where, you're going to be best at the job if your heart's really in it. I don't want some guy who doesn't want to be there being my nurse or my child's teacher. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. And no, the answer isn't to tell men to set aside their masculinity. Also, it's interesting here how she brings up not enough men wanting to be nurses or teachers. Does she simultaneously think that it's a problem that not enough women want to be garbage men or go into the trades?
I love Lauren. I'm glad her thought process is so similar to my thought process when I heard that particular segment right there. It's just like, wait, you want men to do jobs that they don't want to do? Why aren't we forcing women to do jobs that they don't want to do then?
I haven't seen the interview fully, but I'm guessing the answer is no.
So to me, to be saying they're all in general happier at home. Well, we had a clear period of time where women fought expressly against that.
No, we did. And then we, as I mentioned earlier, we measured against it, and we measured how it turned out, and all but one of the surveys showed that the women became less happy. So I'm totally willing to take these surveys with a grain of salt, but in as much as we can measure them, they undercut your argument.
No. If there was a survey that showed that men are happier just sitting on their ass all day on some island just watching TV.
Everyone's happier doing nothing. You think men want to fucking be leaders of fucking society? You think we want to fucking be garbage men? We want to be sewer men? No, we do these things. Why? Because it is kind of put on us in society. And 2, we kind of need to do it to live. And 3, we need to be high up there in some kind of echelon of career to even get women. That's why we do things. Women don't have to do these things. You don't have to work. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to, have a career to get a man. But a man needs these things to get a woman.
TV.
They are in the short term.
Do you think that they should strive towards that?
No, because they wouldn't be happier in the long term, because happiness is an objective matter. It's not purely subjective. So men, though, truly, this is why Genesis 3 is written the way that it is. Men do not want to lord over women. They don't want to dominate women. They don't want to be knuckle draggers. You know what men want to do? They want to sit on the couch and eat potato chips and be left alone. That's what men, that's the broken, dark part.
I'm just saying, I think everyone would
masculinity.
be happier in the short term sitting at home on a couch, which is why I think those studies.
No, I don't think so.
self-reported happiness refers to that type and not eudaimonia.
I think women would be happier in the short term playing the girl boss and having all sorts of, color-coded notebooks and pens and stuff. But they would find that they don't actually like it. They don't really want to work at the law firm. They don't really want to be in the widget factory. They would rather do something that is more naturally feminine.
Interesting. So I think a concept that Michael Knowles is getting at is not just the distinction between short-term and long-term happiness, but I guess hedonistic pleasure versus meaningful joy and purpose.
I don't want to be independent. I want to be dependent on my wife. I love my wife. I want to make a vow that I'm going to stay with my wife forever and have a nice big family. And I don't want to be separated at all. I want to be one.
I love that Michael Knowles said that. I don't want to be independent. I depend on my wife. Throughout all of history, have you ever heard men say, I'm strong and independent, I don't need no woman? No. Men have always realized we want women, and women are important in our lives. But women, on the other hand, just think that we're just frivolous accessories. I love that he said that.
Flesh with my wife. If I didn't want to do that, if I wanted to just be on my own but have someone to mitigate the loneliness and occasionally sleep with, why get married at all?
I do want to get married. I am going to eventually date to marry, I think. Like, my goal is to eventually start dating in like a year, date in under 3 months, get engaged, get married. I don't want to do the like multi-year dating and
good.
like cohabitating before. I think that's a joke. I think it's a waste of time.
But why do it?
I'm also cognizant of the fact that.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with this lady. She's on the modern woman side of the table, but she's doesn't seem to be an OnlyFans woman herself. Maybe she's just like a feminist lady. I'm interested in what her story is.
Men today are a joke, and there's a 1 in 4 chance that your husband's going to commit infidelity, and I don't believe in necessarily like pursuing.
There are things you can do to
marriage if
mitigate
they cheat
those
on
stats,
you.
though.
Mitigating infidelity on my husband's part. What? Being a blow doll for him?
No, I wouldn't recommend that either. No, the things you could do is
you can definitely tell how disingenuous how she argues things. Just making light and just pointing at the sex doll as if all men are just guaranteed to cheat, guaranteed to sleep with other women. No, if you were a good woman, you took care of your man, you empty his balls, you filled his stomach up, the likelihood of him cheating on you is fucking slim to none.
Marry men who, for instance, don't recognize the sacramental reality of divorce. Just to use one example.
That's not what I said. I said infidelity.
Or who recognize that infidelity is
every man I've ever
sin.
dated has been Christian.
So it's interesting that a lot of people who are both feminists or red pill manosphere types, they act as if stats apply equally to all people and there's nothing you can do to mitigate them. Like, there's a 1 in 4 chance my husband's going to cheat on me, so that's just the way it is. Different groups and individuals will have different likelihoods of cheating on you. Same with the guys who are like, oh, well, there's an 80% chance like your wife.
This is why I say go overseas, guys. Get your passports. The likelihood of Filipinas, Vietnamese women, Thai women, Cambodian women that are going to give you what you want, that are a little bit more committed, that don't believe in divorce, that want to take care of their kids, you have much higher chances with them. This is how I see men mitigating those risks.
Will be the one who files for divorce, whatever. There are mitigating factors you can do. Did you know that you do not have the same rate of divorce if you are a high school dropout as you do if you are a college educated person that comes from a family that doesn't have divorce in it, right? There are differentiating factors. Same with infidelity. The likelihood of your husband cheating on you is not going to be the same. If he's a committed Christian who waited till marriage, or at the very least didn't sleep around before, has never cheated on anyone in the past, versus if he is a serial philanderer and maybe you guys met because you were both hooking up behind your partner's back. Like there's things you can do to mitigate risk.
This would be a destiny thing. Yeah. You got your girl by taking her from one of your viewers. You didn't think another person's going to take your girl after you just took that girl from someone else. Kind of happens that way.
Okay, not everyone has the same risk factors for every little thing, and I hate the mentality that the feminists and even red pill sphere types act as if there's nothing they can do. Situations are just out of their.
I somewhat agree. I do, doomsday speech a lot about these things, but the mitigating part would be getting your passport.
hands, they're at the mercy of the statistics. It's like, no, you still have agency. You can still make good or bad decisions.
Conservative, and at least one of them, I found an Oculus in his closet where he's watching VR porn. In my experience, like I said, at the macro level, it's usually these Christian conservatives who are the most porn addicted, and at a micro level, these men I'm dating.
A
You
lot of them
date
on
a
my
lot of these
OnlyFans.
Christian conservatives.
Well,
This-
See, to me, you're an OnlyFans girl, and you're dating Christian conservatives. Do you think Christian conservatives that are dating OnlyFans girls are truly the most Christian, the most, God-abiding people? I don't think so.
Something about them that attracts you.
well, I'm waiting till marriage.
Good. Oh,
Okay, that's good. Good for her.
good. So you don't. Okay. Well, look, I think that's fabulous. And I love that you, as a feminist, are very attracted to Christian conservative men. I think that's good for society broadly. It's bad that these guys are like looking at porn or whatever. I don't know that necessarily implies that once they get married, they would either continue to do that or would step out on you and cheat and have an affair or whatever. It does seem to me, though, that certain groups of men are less likely than others to
Right.
sleep with other women. And so, if you want to have that good, stable life and maybe overcome your fears of being dependent on someone
Yeah.
who might be a total loser, then you might want to make sure you don't pick a total loser.
But even stepping out aside, I mean, I gave you those stats about correlation between religious men and pornography consumption and prostitution purchasing. So, like, how can you say that?
Some people who are broadly
Where's she
religious
getting
of
the
some
statistics from?
sect or other do that, and all people are tempted by things. But I don't think that we can just throw our hands in the air and fall into a kind of romantic quietism and say, well, they're all just, these men are all dogs, they're all cats. No, actually, some men
I mean, I say it all the time. We're dogs.
are more inclined to virtue than others. And, that might, if you...
But based off the stats, it would seem the religious men are less inclined to virtue. if
No,
they're
not
watching
that's
porn and buying
What?
sex.
That's ridiculous.
That even makes
telling
sense.
me that
But I gave you the
Christian men
stats.
are more like...
She didn't give any stats.
No,
she was
you
just
didn't.
like, these people do this more. Like, that's not a stat. And I also don't think that's correct. Like, if you look at actual church attending Christians, again, we're like speaking of hypotheticals, but no, she didn't give a stat.
No, you get...
I highly doubt men that are going to church every day, that are very God-fearing, are the worst men out there that are causing adultery and watching porn at that high of a rate. I highly doubt that. You know who would be the most? Is the kids that are 18, 16, that probably aren't Christian conservatives. Probably are the ones that are watching the most porn.
gave me a stat and said, certain red states with certain religious groups consume certain kinds of porn or whatever. But
The more Christians are in a
you're
state, the more pornography consumption and searches there are in prostitution.
More Christians in a state, the more porn consumption. Does poverty matter? Does the demographic of the state matter? Does anything else maybe contribute to this other than it being a Christian state or a red state?
Prostitution purchases, yes.
It would seem that perhaps...
Okay, so I'm just gonna. In the United States, there, a lot of studies that break things down by state or geography, and it's interesting because in the U.S., southern states tend to be more conservative, but they also have, they have more illegal immigrants, right? Because they're in the South, and they have more people of color, broadly speaking, including Black people. A lot of the stats that people try to say are affiliated with, being conservative or being a Christian, they're not actually measuring what they think they're measuring. I saw a tweet that was very, very unfortunate for the person who was posting it. And her question to the internet was basically, why are red states so violent? To which someone replied, the awkward moment when you've basically posted a map outlining the prevalence of African Americans in the
Ouch.
United States. There's
Ouch.
a lot of associations being made here that don't make sense.
There are other factors at play there.
what?
When you're talking about a full state, I don't know, when you're talking about class, income, when you're talking about education, when you're talking about family formation in the first place.
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of states in the Midwest. Education levels are much lower in those states too.
When you're talking, for goodness sakes, when you're talking about geography, we're talking about whole states here, and you're pulling one variable out and saying, see, there it is. The correlation is the causation.
Very good,
That's
Michael.
crazy.
Anytime I see one of these podcasts go viral, I always want to ask people, put aside how fun you think hookup culture is.
Yeah.
If you look at the two parties who are on screen, which side seems like they genuinely have joy and purpose in their life? Which side seems like they have it more together? I'm not saying that automatically makes someone right, but if it's a consistent pattern where the people who are arguing for family, for stability, for tradition and Christianity, they always seem like the ones who, I don't know, maybe aren't addicted to this or that or going through this or that personal crisis. Like maybe there's a lesson to be learned there.
Damn, Lauren brought up a good point. She's right. When we look at these debates, we look at the two parties, and the party that almost argues for families and, nuclear family and a lot of these values, they are definitely much more put together people. They're much more calm and stable. They're very high achieving people. But when we look at the opposite of all the feminist side of things, it's always the weirdest of people, the loudest of people, the people that interrupt the most, and the people with the least respect for others.
In any case, that's basically all I have to say for now. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.
That was some good chow. Shout outs to Lauren for a wonderful video. I loved her take on how she broke things down. I'm gonna be a little racist on it. I think it's the Asian in her that's how she's breaking it down. Please like, subscribe down below. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.